Hey everybody, it's Elon from the Eggard podcast. As you know, I like bringing on interesting people who have stories to share, and I came across Jameson Arasi, who's here today. It's good to meet you, Jameson. In
Thank you
in
for
the
having me,
flesh.
Elon. Yeah,
I don't know what we call it.
virtually in the flesh.
Virtually. So I had come across your story on Instagram. I saw a post about your brother who had tragically passed. And just the way you shared it, the way you expressed everything you went through really kind of hit me. And it's something that's uh, I think a really important conversation to have: loss, grief, how you deal with it. And I just wanted to bring you on just to honor your brother's story and your story of also dealing with it, which has been amazing. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate you having me on, and like we talked about, it's very important. It's talking about the hard things. Not everybody chooses to talk about the hard things,
Mhm.
and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to just have a conversation and talk about hard things, raise awareness, make people aware. You don't know what you don't know. That's the phrase, and um, anything we can do to shed light onto hard stuff is awesome. So I appreciate you having me on.
Well, why don't we just jump into the backstory? Why don't we jump into kind of the story of you and your brother, and then
Sure.
what happened? So,
Sure. So, quick bio. Born and raised Long Island, New York. My parents have been together since they were 17. They got married when they were 21 in 1976. They live in the same house that we grew up in. They've owned it for almost 50 years. Um, I am one of four. We're all J's: Jacqueline, Jeffrey, Jameson, Julie. I'm the third. Um, Very tight knit, very close family, amazing family. My childhood was awesome growing up. My parents are the most selfless people. We were very lucky, very fortunate. My mom and dad prioritized family. Dinner every night, 6 o'clock. If you're not going to be there, if you have a sporting thing or something
mhm.
that's a conflict, you better call 30 minutes prior, or you're going to be in the doghouse. Really just being there for each other. The cliches of, okay, having family dinner and talking about your day, sharing. You may not be interested or love everything that your sister or your brother's doing, but appreciating and supporting and listening and being and having awareness to what's going on in their lives. We were very open, very honest. My brother and I were 18 months apart. He was my best friend. We had bunk beds growing up. We're very close. We barely fought. He knew me better than anybody. As we grew up, I wanted to be a sports writer, sports journalist. We always knew he was going to be a chef. Since he was, 15 years old, that's where he shined. In the classroom, I was the big nerd. My older sister, she's a nerd as well. She went to Stanford. I went to the University of Wisconsin, but we were always the nerds. My brother wasn't the best student, wasn't the best athlete. In the kitchen, watch out. That's where he really he shined from a young age. Kind of felt that's what he was supposed to do, and then started working in a kitchen in high school, and then went to the Culinary Institute of America, the number one culinary school in the world, and really excelled. That's where he was his best. That's where he felt alive. Parlayed that into working for some of the best chefs in the world: Thomas Keller, Charlie Palmer, per se, Oriole. He worked in London at the Savoy Hotel. You know, every single kitchen that he went to, he belonged. He proved that he belonged. Nothing was, again, it's the crazy hours and the commitment. It's the lifestyle that you sign up for. It's not glamorous, but that's what he loved to do. He loved to take care of other people. That's always what he was. He was always the host. Almost annoying. Hey, you good? Going every time, he would have guests over. It was he was the one making sure that every single person, even the person in the corner in the back that came with a friend that nobody knew, he would make sure that he connected with that person, making sure that that person, hey, you good? Do you need something to eat, drink? That's just the type of way he was. He loved to take care of people. So that's what we loved about my brother. That's when he was, at his best. Fast forward, I fell into hospitality. I said, you know what? I want to work with my brother. I love my brother. We were best friends. I said, I'm going to get into hospitality, maybe see what this is about when I was about 25 years old. and I took to it. I learned the business. I had amazing teachers and mentors to learn the front of the house side, the business side, that kind of stuff. Never put on an apron. God,
Mhm.
I would. My dad says, he had one son that worked in Michelin star kitchens. Could make you anything in the world. The other son can make reservations, and that's the running joke. So, again, I am a little better in the kitchen now. I think just for lack of embarrassment, over the years I had to learn. But fast forward, I was like, you know what? I could do this. I could do the front of the house. Jeff, we already know you got the back. The food's going to be great. Let me learn the front,
Mhm.
the business aspect of it. And we could do this. So we ended up working. We were living in New York. Then we moved to Chicago for about 10 years, opened a hotel together, restaurant, had our own restaurant deal that fell through. Then COVID happened. We moved back to New York. But our long-term goal was to always do something together, open a restaurant together. We had a business plan, everything. We raised money. The restaurant would be named Jack and Jules, named after our two sisters, the two brothers. So we had a plan, and that's what we were working towards every day. Every day that we went to work, even our worst day at work. I would always tell these people and friends and family, and they're like, how do you do it? The nights, weekends, holidays. Even on my worst day going to work, Alon, it would be something working toward our dream. So,
Yeah.
we're working towards something. So again, COVID was very major hit to our industry. Businesses were lost. It just really decimated a lot of, spirits in the hospitality industry. And that's what hospitality is all about, is the way that people make you feel. Danny Meyer and Will Guidara, Danny Meyer wrote Setting the Table, and then Will wrote Unreasonable Hospitality. But they explain it that service is black and white, hospitality is color. Hospitality service is X, Y, and Z by the book. This is how we deliver something to the table. Hospitality is how you make that person feel, how you present it. What is your take? What separates you from other people? Especially in New York City, you got 10,000 restaurants. Why am I going to go to this place? Okay, you're already here. I would always empower my team to give that person a reason to come back. And we took pride in that. We loved that. So, that's kind of the backstory of where my brother was. He had moved back to Chicago for a job and a girl. And then, things post COVID, everything was just up in the air. It was first off, in every aspect of life. I think we all were all over the place, and but then for him, he came back to New York after spending, I think it was about 18 months out there, and we had all spent Thanksgiving together in 2022. So about 15 months ago.
Mhm.
My sisters, my family at my parents' house, after COVID, I think everybody kind of pressed the pause button of, what, like, we got to spend time together, because the world could stop, because it literally did,
Mhm.
and my mom is, we've but like I said before, we're always very close as a family. We all prioritized showing up for each other and being there. But we made a point post COVID. So, that weekend of November of 2022, my sisters were here, and I have nieces and nephews, and my brother cooked, as he always does, for the family. I went back to the city that Friday night. I had to go to work. I had to work that Saturday, November 26th. I'll never forget. My sisters were going back to, one lives in Virginia. The other lives upstate New York. They were leaving Saturday morning very early, 5 a.m. to get on the road to, beat the traffic. And I said goodbye at everything was normal. Laughing, joking, fun, the usual, nothing. I mean, again, it's always after the fact, you always hear, what did we miss? What did we miss? Like, prior to this, I would always, if you hear a situation, you would always say, oh, come on, there had to be signs, and you just assume that. And after this, I can tell you now, people can hide a lot of things. The rest of that weekend, my sisters leave Saturday morning. My brother wakes up, sets the alarm, bye to the nieces and nephews, my sister, my brother, my sisters, my brother-in-law, and then goes back to bed, wakes up at 9 o'clock. My parents about 10 o'clock were going out for their Saturday morning errands. And when they came back about an hour and a half later, unfortunately, he had taken his own life. And my parents came home. Again, it's something that I'll never forget. I got the text. I was working 3:23 p.m. on a Saturday. My dad texted me, please give me a call. I need you to call me now. I have terrible news. And, that's when you're working in hospitality, it's all right. Can it wait? Just don't bother me unless it's an emergency. This was an emergency. I stepped off the floor, never forget it, back into the office, and I knew something was wrong, and I got that call, and it changed everything. It changed me forever. It changed my life. It changed my future. It changed the way I look at life. It changed my family. It was the most difficult thing that I've ever had to face. It still is the most difficult thing that I am dealing with on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. It's grief is tough. The death of a loved one. Again, growing up, you lose grandparents, and again, it's a cycle of life, and every loss is loss. I'm not going to diminish any loss, but tragedy and is catastrophic, seismic waves. It shakes you. I get emotional still, thinking about, I'm back here right now, that text, and it takes you back, man. It's tough. So yeah, again, unfortunately he'd taken his life and left a long note, 20 pages explaining, it was that he just didn't want to go on anymore. And it was his choice. He loved us all. Nobody could have done anything. He knew that if he asked for anything, any money, anything that we would do it. That's just the way we were, a family. We showed up. We always showed up. We helped each other out. We were always there. But 3:23 p.m. Saturday, November 26th, 2022. It's when everything changed for me.
There's just a couple things that you said that I think are really interesting. Number one, there is a difference between catastrophic loss versus sorry, my eyes, I have terrible allergies today, and I'm just I'm sitting here and my eyes are.
I thought I was making you cry already. Come on.
Your story did actually make me cry when I saw your video, to be honest with you. So, but good. That's but there's a fundamental difference from things that happen outside the natural cycle. Losing a parent is very, very difficult. Losing a son is unnatural. Losing a brother at this age is unnatural. It goes against the natural order of things. And it is especially in the way that you lost your brother, it's a different kind of thing. It's a shocking, jarring, your entire perception of reality. That's why I wanted to ask you, when you said you knew something was wrong, did you know it was your brother, or you just knew?
No. Honestly, I thought it was my grandma. She was 90, 89, 90, and we were waiting. But my dad would have said, hey, he would have prefaced it. I'm very close to my dad. There becomes my brother, my dad, and I were best friends, the three of us. Again, I think parents, when you get to if you're close with your family, you become friends. And
yeah,
that's the way when they're done raising you, it's like, all right, I guess this guy's cool, whatever. But again, you get to that point, and I'm like I said before, and I say this genuinely, like, my parents are the most unbelievable people. Ask anyone in the community, they've been here 50 years. They're really good people. I know my dad well. Everybody, we know each other, and I knew something was wrong when I got that text. I sprinted. I aggressively walked off the restaurant floor, and almost when I got the phone call, I almost collapsed. I did collapse and and there's just I can't express the emotions. I can't put into words. I'm a writer. I take pride in, and I'm a talker. Obviously, you hear that. I can't relay how that felt. It's shock. It's okay. How in the moment you're trying to, comprehend the incomprehensible. You're
Yeah.
trying to make sense of things that are not sensible. And you're they say, like, when you are gonna if people are about to die, their life flashes before their eyes. My future flashed in front of my eyes, in a matter of minutes. I'll never forget. I was like, what did we miss? No way. Why would he do this? Why? The blame, the guilt that you just instantly absorb. And then in my future, oh my God, like, I need him at this. He's going to miss this. He's going to miss that. And I'm thinking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, who knows? But in my mind, since I was a 2-year-old, I have envisioned everything in my future involving him. And when that is removed and there's no possibility of it, like, remotely happening, it's there's no explanation. I can't explain how that feels. It's a hopeless in the moment. Again, after the fact, you process, therapy, grief counseling, you get to a place. But I'll never forget that first, it's almost that first week of, it's just complete shell shock. And again, I will never relate wartime to that. It's in a disrespectful way.
But it is a comparable. It's a abnormal. Again, it's an abnormal situation. It's an unnatural, just like loss and war. It's unnatural.
Right.
It's traumatic death. It's traumatic loss. There is no way to quantify it. So whatever experience you have from it, I think it's really good that you're opening up talking about it. There's so many people who have experienced loss that don't know how to cope with it, don't have healthy ways to deal with it, feel isolated by it. And you've been really brave and just kind of getting out there and being like, look, you know what? I don't like, it's a hard loss, but sorry, my eyes again. But it's a hard loss, but this is how I'm going to cope with it. And I think you can help a lot of people in the process.
Yeah, I think the main thing for me that I knew after, I processed everything and realized, holy crap, this is what happened. I knew a couple of things. I become, in the last prior maybe 5-6 years, very self-aware, made behavioral changes, corrective, just because there's certain things you have these honest conversations. I started meditating, kind of just really looking in the mirror, becoming self-aware. So I knew that I needed professional help. I needed therapy. I don't know where this trauma is going to be or how it's going to impact me in my life, but I knew any stored trauma from we're born, that's the most traumatic event of your life, is being born, to, if you're in a crib and, your mom doesn't get you on the third cry, whatever, all that is stored trauma in your central nervous system. And it's going to affect you in one way or another, whether physical, emotional, behavioral, at some point, until you find the root of that. Again, you're not going to find the root of all trauma dating back to, 5 or 6, or, if somebody pushed you on the playground and made you, trip over something in front of the girl you liked, whatever. You're not going to go back to that. But as we get older, anything that we store in our body that is traumatic, that makes us feel, shame or embarrassment, or, it will affect you somehow, some way down the line. So I knew right away. I was like, okay, after, the triage unit, probably about 3 or 4, immediately we had a family friend that I talked to who, is a therapist, and was just said, hey, let me talk to, the siblings, like, let's just to see where they're at, and just process before setting me up with, a therapist and grief counseling and all that. But I knew, and that's the biggest thing. Honestly, it's in that moment, I didn't want this loss to impact, of course it's going to, but to suppress it, like so many people are taught to suppress their grief because people don't want to talk about it, and if you suppress that, it's going to impact my personal relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, professional relationships, just because of that response and not addressing it. So right off the bat, I knew, again, I think that's the best advice I can give anybody, regardless of loss. It could be something like which happened to my family, or it could be the loss of a dog. Honestly, if you have a bond with somebody, loss is loss. I'm never going to diminish anyone's loss. There's no comparison, or it's not a competition. If you have an emotional attachment to something, a person, there is going to be an emotional response. So I think that's just crucially important. Especially for men. I think the biggest thing, you read these quotes all the time is men are raised to be quiet. You suck it up. Boys don't cry, and then you beg them later on to speak, and that has to change. Again, I'm very proud of mental health initiatives that the country has taken, but they are still light years away from where they need to be. I think addressing and feeling supported and talking about grief, because it's overwhelming and you don't know how to process something that you've never felt. Again, for me, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know grief. Until you're in it, it just changes everything, especially, and I make posts about things that I'm learning as I'm navigating my own grief that I wish, I made a post about, I lose this person every day, every single day of my life. We don't just lose that person one day and then it's done and, down the line. Every morning when we wake up, there's 10 seconds, you get your bearings, your alarm goes off, you realize where you're at, grab your phone, see what date it is, what time, realize where you are. And you always ask yourself, did it happen? Is this my reality? You get that gut punch, slap in the face. Okay. And you lose the person every single day, so we have to have empathy towards it. Grief isn't the flu that someone's getting over, or, mono for a month and, they'll come around. They're not going to come around. There's a spoiler alert that I'll tell anybody listening. Your grief is with you forever. And the sooner that you realize that and accept that, the better off you will be. You have to understand, okay, there's a poem Donna Ashford writes about grief came to you because love came first. There's a line in there that says, pull her a chair at the table, talking about grief. Pull her a chair at the table because she lives with you now. She's with you. She's going to be with you everywhere you go. So it's the way that you manage that grief, you deal with that grief, you speak of that grief, you don't suppress the grief, and then you get to a place where, okay, and remember, you can't be angry. Of course you can, but you'll get to a place in your healing where when you think of your grief, you remind yourself what the grief represents and the love you had for that person. Again, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think the main thing for that is just dealing with the idea of grief and how taboo it is, especially suicide grief. You're going to lose friends. You'll lose friends. Spoiler alert. Hey, and at first you're going to take it personally. I was, what the hell, man? I didn't do anything wrong. And grief challenges people's control of things. It also, for them to empathize with you, forces them to go to a place in them, not you, in themselves, that they don't want to go. So what do they do?
Why people have a hard time. I've noticed whenever someone passes away, you have a certain group of friends, no matter how close they are with you, who cannot cope with it. They seem unsupportive. You know what I mean? They seem closed off, and really what they're doing is protecting themselves from their own losses. Or from their own future losses. They see your parent died and they know their parent is older. And so they're not able to face it for themselves. And therefore they can't support you through it.
So they ghost you. So they avoid it. There's a child. Again, it's doesn't matter how old you are. it goes back and reverts you back to, holy crap, I'm going to die someday. So if they face their own mortality, holy crap, my dad, my brother, it forces them to go to a place that they don't want to go. So they avoid it, and then they avoid you. And it's really hard for somebody at the beginning, for a friend of yours who you thought was your friend, to avoid you. And they don't mean it. And you get to a place
We talked
months
about
later.
this on the phone. Yeah, you're the one who brought this up to me, and I thought it was so fascinating. You're the one who made me aware of this. Yes, I remember when we talked about it.
Months later, you realize, okay, I can't take this personally. My therapist, I have an amazing, therapist, and I read tons of stuff about grief, because I think the main thing, another thing you asked, kind of at the beginning about grief, the initial response, not only getting professional help, it's heavy. Things are heavy. Loss is heavy. There are professional people that can help you every single day, every single appointment. They could give you, your grief is going to be there. You're never going to get over the grief, but you can start developing tools to manage the grief. And once you shift that mentality, it's not overwhelming. I don't need to conquer my grief. I just need to be able to, when it comes, okay, think about my session. When I felt like this, she said to do X, Y, and Z. And then I don't want to say you get better at grief. You don't. You just learn to manage it, hold it, deal with it, let it surface. And that's a huge thing, is you have to know what grief is. I needed to, we don't talk about it. We're not taught growing up. Okay, this is empathy. This is compassion. When Billy's mom died when he was 5, he's going to feel that for every single day of his life. I've made a post about this, addressing it, because it's important to talk about this. Say little Billy at 5, the younger you are when it happens, the longer you grieve. I'll repeat this.
Because you carry it for life. Yeah.
The younger you are when it happens just means the longer you will grieve. It doesn't mean you're going to get over it when you become a teenager or an adult. So it's like mind-blowing to me that it's like you don't think about this. We're not taught to have that empathy and compassion and grief support and be, that humanity. That I don't fault people. We talk about losing friends. I don't fault anybody. I don't. At the beginning, it took me maybe a year now to really say that with confidence and mean it. At the beginning, I was like, what the F, man? Like, dude, I don't have the plague. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one hurting, yet you're not supporting me. I thought, and it's a mind thing that it drives you nuts until you realize, holy crap, okay, that's why they're doing that, and also people don't know how to support. Again, I make posts about stuff that I have experienced and share, because raising awareness to how can you support a grieving friend? Okay, like we already said that our society is horrible at teaching us how to support grieving people and understanding grief and talking about it openly. And but how can you support a grieving friend? Okay, the last thing, I made a post a couple of weeks ago. The last thing somebody wants to be told when they're grieving is they're in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. Try to stay positive. They don't need a coach. I saw a quote that, they don't need a coach. They just need somebody to support them, and that support can be different. These cliches actually diminish someone's grief. When you say those cliches, it diminishes what the person is feeling, what the person is trying to tell you. Hey, I'm hurting. Oh yeah, but you'll get over it. Everything happens for a reason. No,
that's a terrible response.
It's the worst. It actually, and that's a huge thing that people, they mean well, but they don't realize it. So I made a post, recently that blew up. It, simple post, but I thought it was so important. And I said, ask this, ask a grieving person this simple question and watch their entire facial expression change. And it's like, what's the question? What's the question? You know, people are always, this is how you support. You tell me about blank, because that's what they want to talk about. They don't want to hear, you know, rah, rah, and you'll be fine, you'll get over it. They want to talk about what they're feeling, who their person was, what the loss and the seismic hole and massive void in their life is. You know, the quote at the end of the post I made, I said, death makes people uncomfortable. Nobody wants to talk about it. When, you know, and they want us to hide our grief when all we want to do is talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because it just, people, especially older people, they say, if I stop talking about the person, if I stop saying their name, people are gonna forget them. They're gonna forget them. Again, is that exaggerating? Yeah, but that's how the person feels, you know?
Well, there's a couple cool quotes. One of them about grief is, I think Andrew Garfield said it. He said that grief is just all the unexpressed love you had for a person. So it's like everything
with no place to go.
With no place to go. So it comes out in grief. It's all the things you said it perfectly. You had an entire future that you always just anticipated, just naturally, that your brother would be a part of, because that's the natural order of things. And then, so your grief is the destruction of all those future memories and experiences that you don't get a chance. It's all the love that you would have shared with him.
And to that point, just to piggyback, I made a point. I made a post about this. Again, a lot of my posts are just, I'm not an expert. I didn't go to school for this. I'm not going to be a therapist. It's not what I want to do. Yeah. No, I mean, you know, I am sharing my experience because if my vulnerability, you know, is the price to make somebody feel seen, heard, validated, it's always going to be worth it. You know, again, so fast forward to the story where I'm at, you know, to finish that point about, there's a double whammy that we talk about. Yes, in grief, we grieve, one, the loss of that person, which is hard enough. But you're going at some point when you start to manage that and develop the tools and how to handle that grief. Holy crap. What I have to grieve my future life with that person, of everything that I thought from I was a kid in bunk beds sharing with my brother that he was going to be there. And that now grappling and really feeling and believing, you can be told that all you want, but actually understanding and realizing and accepting it's no longer a possibility. And that's enormous. And it's heavy and it sucks. And it's the double whammy, we call it, joking around, you know, it's not joking around, but a double whammy in grief that nobody talks about. Who thinks about that? Why would you think about that until you're in my situation, you know?
But it's important to hear it, because what it really raises your attention to, what it really makes you, and this is something, you know, with my dad and all that stuff that I was going through that made me aware of, was, you know, be in the present and be grateful for the time you have with people. That's like, the more you listen to people grieving and that end of things, the future that you did not change. When we talked, I was kind of like, you know what? I'm reprioritizing my life. You know, my dad's getting older. He has that little thing that happened. I'm like, I'm reprioritizing. What am I going to live with? The regret of not being around, or the regret of being around and missing out on other things that aren't as important? So yeah. The importance of awareness of grief, or the awareness of loss, the awareness and openness about death, is that it will make you, and if there is a God, the reason he would have created a world like this that is tragic in so many ways is because it's the only thing that can make us truly appreciate the people and the things we have in our lives right now. Without that loss, we would have, and I noticed you, just talking to you, you seem really grateful, even now after that loss, for the things you have. You seem hyper aware, hyper present in all the things that you now, prior to this, might not have put that much attention and effort and focus into.
1,000%. You know, and again, in my healing, you know, I got to a place right after everything happened, therapy, meditation, everything's time-based. You know, we had talked about this. Everything was time-based. You can have these emotional breakthroughs and then time's up, got to go to work and back into the real world. So I knew, and like I said prior, I'm very self-aware of what I need and how I'm going to become better and understand the grief that I'm going through, specific to me. So I knew that I needed to go somewhere, and I went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks and rented a house by myself and went to the beach and was uninterrupted. Two, because I could tell you everything. I mean, I could tell you, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. But do I believe that in the dark? You know, and I was realizing. So I went in April. It happened in November, and then what, 4 or 5 months later, I was like, I need to go accept it, because I could tell you to your face, to my therapist's face, like, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, but do I believe that to myself when I'm meditating alone, or on a long run in New York City to distract myself? Like, do I really believe that my future is no longer a possibility? So I went to Costa Rica and I sat and cried and really just sat and believed it. And I'll never forget, I was on the beach and just sobbing my eyes out. And I felt, for the first time since it happened, probably 1,000 pounds lighter, because I realized and I accepted it. Finally, I was saying it, then I accepted it. Again, a main point is everyone's grief is different. There's no timetable for grief. No one's grief it's not a competition. It's not, I should be here. I hate the stages. Somebody commented on a post, oh, what stage are you in? And what break? Because I shared a post, recently about a major thing that happened to me. I don't believe in stages of grief. Again, like I said, I'm not an expert, but grief is not something to achieve. I didn't graduate to the next level. It's just, everyone's different and everybody's going to know what they need. And for me to share a moment like I had, and we can get into that in a minute, but I have been avoiding talking to my brother, a person that I talk to every day of my life for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been avoiding talking to him because it was just too hard. The guilt, the blame. Again, later on in my healing, I read a ton of stuff, again, be mindful of what you're reading. The internet's crazy, but realizing the tiny, tiny little role that you actually play in that person's decision. Our egos get in the way and say, oh man, like they blame us, or we didn't do this or that. It's like, you learn that it's a tiny, tiny thing fractioning in their decision, and when you grapple that, but there's still, suicide grief's different. It's blame, guilt. What did we miss? What if I did this? And that's what I was avoiding, conversations with my brother. And I recently had that, and somebody said, in the comment section about where am I at in my grief stages and stuff. And it's like, I'm better than I was yesterday. There's no.
Can I ask you a question about it?
Yeah,
though?
of course.
I mean, like, I actually think I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. I don't think the stages of grief, like you said, you worded it perfectly. You're not trying to graduate to another place. The end, it's I guess a process of adaptation. No matter what, you're adapting every day the best you can to this kind of weird concept of this person no longer being around, or no longer
your new reality. It's your new reality.
You're constantly adapting to it, and you'll constantly have reminders of it. You know what I mean? Like, and every happy moment will have an attachment of sadness, because that person won't be there for that happy moment. You have a kid, and you knew that this person was going to be a major part of that, and now they're not. Every happy moment is somewhat followed by the loss of this person who should have been there.
Yeah, and to that point, the first part about, just to finish the story about the Costa Rica, I came back and I said, yep. I need a break. I don't want to do this anymore in regards to hospitality. And it hits you over the head. Grief will change your priorities and perspective overnight. And you can make choices. If you don't enjoy doing something, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not telling you to go quit your job or, divorce your wife or whatever, but like, hey, yeah,
a lot of angry emails.
Well, Jameson said, no, please. My point is, like, you can make changes, and the meter's running. To your point before, Ilan, the meter's running. It will just make sure that it makes you look inward and say, okay, I'm going to die someday. Spoiler alert, we're all mortals. And then it makes you realize in your life, okay, who's important to me? Family, friends, they're all going to at some point. So, you know what? I haven't seen that person in so long because something always happens. You know what? Something doesn't always have to happen. You can make it happen to go make a point. So
Yes,
for
just
me,
by awareness of it, just by awareness of the future. Don't wait to be happy and don't compromise with the idea of, so like I did this. I left my home when I was very young. I moved away. I had dreams. Like, and I don't regret doing it, but I didn't live around my family for most of my life. And I do have some degree of guilt over it, but I'm like, now that's the past. The past is the past.
what can you do? To your point, what can you do about that?
I
But
can
now,
spend time
but you
now.
can do it right now,
Yes.
and you are, and be proud of that.
Yeah, a lot of people spend time regretting the things they didn't do. I'm like, you're still alive. You still have, and then you lose somebody and it reframes things for you. And you're like, but then look at all these other people you still have. You still have an opportunity now to be awake with those people and be present and be happy. Um, and it's just, I wanted to ask you a couple things, just
Sure.
because the most fascinating thing of all is I'd like to believe I've lost a couple friends to suicide or overdosing and things like that. That came as a bit of a shock. And I like to believe that there are signs, and sometimes there just really aren't. And it's I can't understand that. I don't understand how there could be zero signs. How and in your case with your brother, best friend, grew up together in the same business together. I know you almost based your life around him, like your
Yeah,
career path.
yeah.
And there was no moment where you saw sadness, like obvious grief, like obvious sadness that could lead to something like that. Like that was never an idea in your head. Like,
So yeah, to that question, it's a great question. It's fair. We all have our ups and downs, man. Nobody's perfect.
yeah,
And the thing for my family was that we were growing up. We had a family friend, their daughter, who was very close with our family. I was 10 years old. She took her own life, and it made a huge impact on, all of my family, especially my mom. So we knew we had honest conversations then, because we were exposed to it at a young age. My older sister was probably 14, 13. And then my brother was 11. I was 10. My younger sister was 8. And my parents, like I said, we talked about this openly. Hey, if you're ever struggling, if,
yeah,
that's, again, you're 10 years old. Holy crap, we're having this is heavy stuff, but it's important. We didn't
it is
sweep,
important,
we didn't sweep it under the rug. So we had this understanding in our family, like this is always off the table, no matter how low things get, no matter how bad. If you did something horrible, call the house phone. We'll come get you. We'll come figure it out together as a family. But nothing is never too much to that, and nobody will not support you and love you as a family.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's a major point I wanted to make. So we get into adulthood, and life's hard. There's ups and downs. Yeah, we all struggle up and down. I've had my moments. I'm sure you have. Again, but there was nothing that was alarming or
Yeah,
okay. Sound the alarm. We got to have.
a
Holy
sit
crap! I'm
down
really
intervention.
worried.
Yeah,
It's just there's we've all had talk them off. And get them. Listen, nothing a conversation. Nothing when we were younger. A night out with the boys couldn't fix. Certain things like that. And that's why to the perfect segue to that is how you found me. So the year anniversary was coming up, back in November, this past November. And, I'm very proud of myself, my family. I'm not ashamed at all. At first you become, oh my God, I got to hide suicide, the taboo. Oh my God, there's so many questions. And then you get a place in your healing. Like, who are you kidding? So what? Yeah, he was struggling. And then you become okay with it. Again, it's just the different processes of the healing and where you
mhm.
are. So I thought it was important. I was like, okay, I got to make a post, but I don't want it to be self-serving. Anything that I share on social media cannot seek attention. It can't seek validation from others.
Yeah,
It can't be self-serving. It can't be people feeling sorry for me or victim. I am not a victim. I'll say that a million times. I am there's so many people that you said before, you're not joking, but oh, you're so brave to share things. I get that all the time. I'm not brave. I'm just confident enough to do this. Brave. And I tell people, save those adjectives for people who, are running into buildings to save people, our police officers, our firefighters, and then you go to people who are fighting for their lives every day. They're brave. Again, I know what it means and I appreciate it so much, but the way that I got to a place of that is because of this post that I made. So we all were spending Thanksgiving on our own this year. We didn't want to be at the house that it happened. We didn't want to, have all these Thanksgiving holiday reminders. And, I was in Bali weeks prior. I was going to be going away this week, but my sister was going to Michigan. So she's like, why don't you come to the house in Virginia, stay for the week by yourself, huge house, and just be alone and do what you need to do to get through this weekend. And I was like, you know what? I'll do that. So I'm thinking, what am I going to post? It's got to be the right message. It can't be self-serving. I don't want people saying, I'm so sorry for your loss again, 12 months later. I mean, it's like, but what do I do? What do I do? And then I went for a run and I do my best thinking, my meditations or active meditation. I run every day and I came back. I go, boom, got it. There was this video from Norwich FC soccer club about mental health. And the video, again, you can look it up, but the video is two guys. Literally, the video is just them. And they're at a soccer match, football. And one is the boisterous, loud fan. Yeah. And the guy next to him is even keel, quiet, subtle, and they are coming game to game to game. And you see the reaction. This guy's, and this guy is yeah, cool. So it says, it says across the screen, sometimes the signs are obvious when people are struggling, and then it goes to the screen. Sometimes it's not so obvious. And then the most powerful scene, it's just a 3-minute video. The guys come to the game to watch another game, and one of the seats are empty. Mm-hmm. And you only see the torsos. And then the guy sits down, and it's the happy, boisterous fan. That was the one that took his own life. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching that video and shaking and crying months prior and just being like, holy crap, that's me. So fast forward, I was like, what post can I do? What can I do? And I go, holy crap, that's the post. I had videos of 16 hours, 24 hours prior of a happy person, smiling person. When everyone's asking, were there any signs that weekend? I have the video. Does this look like somebody? So I was like, oh my God, I can do this. Turn comments off immediately. If I post this, I'm going to turn comments off. So nobody can say that it's self-serving. Like I was very, very mindful of this, the way that I was going to approach it, because it's a delicate subject. It's an important subject, but an incredible message. And I'd like to read it. I said, 365 days ago, my family went to sleep with full hearts and full stomachs after an amazing Thanksgiving weekend. The next day, our world changed forever. I debated for a very long time whether or not to share these personal videos. These are the last videos of my brother. 16 hours later, he took his own life. I'm not posting this for sympathy or attention. Comments are turned off. Instead, my hope is that you will share this video and this important message. My hope is that you will pick up your phone, call, text those close to you, and simply check in and see how they're doing. And ask how they're really doing. Life is hard. People struggle. Sometimes it's easy to spot, but many times you never know. So please do me a favor. Grab your phone, send a text, make a call. You may be glad you did.